Hey guys, welcome back to Telltale. I am Emily, and in case you didn't notice, today we are taking a big time jump back to the 1920s. Now, of course, it was only 100 years ago, but I mean, it was a great time. The Jazz Age, the lights, the expenditure, all that jazz. So, we are going to be reviewing today one of the most prime novels of its time. We're talking, yes, Great Gatsby. Now, this is a very fascinating book, one of my absolute favorites. But before I dive into it, I am going to take you on a little trip, giving you a little background for F. Scott Fitzgerald. So, Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald was his full name. He was born in September 24th, 1896, and he died December 21st, 1940. He was an American novelist, essayist, screenwriter. I mean, this guy wrote everything and its brother, especially his novels, which focused a lot on the Jazz Age. So I think overall he published four novels, four collections of short stories, and over 160 essays? Short stories. My bad. Have to check my notes here. Yes, over 164 short stories. So this guy wrote a lot. He did experience some fame in his lifetime, but of course, he had a massive revival after his death, and especially with Great Gatsby. Now, the reason we are reviewing Great Gatsby is because, one, it just became public domain. So we are going to probably see a lot of renditions of this, a lot of people probably writing sequels that they wish they had, writing side stories, and probably a couple bastardizations. Unfortunately, that's just the way it runs. So we wanted to kind of catch you guys and catch this book before it went crazy and actually give you the synopsis of the original story. So, Great Gatsby is the story of Jay Gatsby as told by one of his tenants, somebody who's renting a cottage, who also happens to be the cousin of his long lost love. Gatsby throws extravagant parties. If you've ever seen the movie of this, it's pretty nice. It's not as closely following the book as I would like, but I mean visually, it's stunning. Leonardo DiCaprio does a great job playing Jay Gatsby. But really, primarily what this book talks about is the extravagance of the Jazz Age. F. Scott Fitzgerald liked to write social commentary about the Jazz Age. It's not really a pro or against. It's just hey, there's a lot of extravagance going on. There was a bit of a boom right before the Depression. Everybody's listening to jazz music, and of course it's highly controversial. There's a huge sexual revival that's going on because we've got Freud and people coming onto the scene of psychology. So we're really seeing this huge change in what social morality looks like. And so Jay Gatsby is supposed to be a personification of that, where he's rich and he throws these massive parties. Usually at these parties, nobody actually knows who Jay is until he approaches his tenant, who he invited to this party, for the sole purpose of getting closer to his lover, Daisy. Long lost lover, but suddenly refound. Later in the story, spoiler alert, you do find out that Jay Gatsby is literally a nobody who just happened to inherit some money from some guy who had no heirs. He has no consequence whatsoever. He's literally became rich for nothing. Just helped some guy out. He used to be a soldier. That's how he met Daisy originally. He was a soldier and just happened to go to a party that she was at and fall in love with her. And of course, you have the drama, which is Daisy is married to a guy who cheats on her a shit ton. So lots of interesting things happen, trying to kind of hide the relationship, all that jazz. In the end, again, spoiler alert, Jay Gatsby dies, and only two people show up to the funeral. His tenant and some guy who happened to go to a party once, who just thought, hey, I'll show up because I attended this guy's party once. So really that kind of is a really sad and depressing end. Daisy ends up still staying with her husband, who is a cheating asshole. The tenant basically is shit out of luck because now his landlord is gone. And The Great Gatsby is basically his entire perspective of the whole situation, the extravagance, I guess just like the twisting of morality for the most part. So this was a really pivotal book. In fact, this was probably F. Scott Fitzgerald's most important and well-renowned book. I mean, it just talks a great deal about the state of society in the 1920s during the Jazz Age, which he actually coined. That was kind of what he called it, and everybody just picked up afterwards. So this was a really pivotal book to kind of show, like, all of the things that could and did happen during the Jazz Age as a result of jazz music, which I think is kind of funny. I mean, people still feel that way today about rock and roll and various other genres of music, that those things can basically brainwash people into doing crazy things. But what I think people always forget about F. Scott Fitzgerald is this particular Great Gatsby book, it's not actually a romance. A lot of people consider it a romance, but it's actually a tragedy. One, because, of course, Jay dies in the end. Like, you wouldn't call Romeo and Juliet a romance. It's a tragedy. So I think that's one thing that's really frustrating, is that a lot of people are like, oh, it's such a great romance novel. It's not a romance novel. This is a tragedy, which is why I like it so much, because I am a sucker for tragedy. But one of the things I also love about this is F. Scott Fitzgerald is phenomenal at writing all kinds of literature with a really great world building. He sets a scene in the glamour of the 1920s that you would expect. Like, you feel transformed and brought into the story every time he writes a page describing anything. Like, I mean, this whole look I did today is basically what I've read describe people look like and the extravagance look like. I tried to like personify that whole translation in myself today. But Great Gatsby is a phenomenal book. This is a top tale as far as I'm concerned. This is a very pivotal book. I think everybody should read this at least once in their life because it is so phenomenal. Yes, it is sad, but it is realistic in that sometimes you just don't get a happy ending. And one of the things I really appreciated that F. Scott Fitzgerald did in this book is he really communicated well that Jay was owned by his own stuff. Like, he didn't own his estate. He didn't own those things. He was owned by it. The expectation that there would be parties, the expectation that he was a man of wealth forever, like he was just born into it. He was old money. Just all these expectations were narratives that were handed to him, not things that he earned and not things that he owned. So I think that was a really big commentary that F. Scott Fitzgerald made, is that we have this character who seems like he has it all, but everything he has owns him. And I think that was a really pivotal thing to talk about, because there was a superficiality that was starting to kind of become a social norm, where debutante balls like were all about who's who and what's what, who's old money, who's new money, that sort of thing. Making alliances between families and that sort of thing. A general disrespect for anyone who was a certain socioeconomic status. Definitely a disrespect for people who were of color, people who were different, anybody who was trying to be rebellious or go against social norms. So this was a huge commentary on a lot of that stuff. So it's a really good read. It's just phenomenally done. You really believe these characters. You get really sucked into their lives. The drama is, like, I'm not usually a very, like, drama-loving person, but F. Scott Fitzgerald did a great job describing strange and unusual social dynamics that built this group. The drama was realistic. The drama was witty, even. Like, a lot of it required people to really think hard about what they were doing and why they were doing it. So it ended up being a really, really good read for me. Really enjoyed it a lot. Oh, got a runny nose now. That's what I get for putting on makeup. I don't know if any other ladies out there deal with that, but when you put on heavy makeup, you ever get a runny nose? I sure do. So pardon me for that. But one of the things I really do love about F. Scott Fitzgerald, for sure, especially in The Great Gatsby, his world building. That is the thing that I love the most. His world building just is phenomenal. You feel like the glamour of the age slapped you in the face with a 2x4. Like, you get it. And especially, like, I don't know if any of you have been to upstate New York or anywhere, like the Hamptons, anything like that. Like, when you go to the Hamptons, you can see old homes that look like they are described just as they're described in here. Like, this felt really realistic to me. I was born in upstate New York, so little bits and pieces that I do remember are very realistic. The old homes, the mansions, the elevators in mansions on lake shores, like, this stuff is real. It really looks like that. So it just kind of was really fun for me too, because then I'm like, oh, I remember so-and-so having a house like that, and, you know, things like that. So it was really kind of a good backtracking in my own memory as well of things that I remember, things my parents described to me when they were also living in New York. So I thought it was a great book. Really enjoy it. 5 out of 5 stars. F. Scott Fitzgerald just knows what he's doing. Really talented writer. Well-deserved recognition during his time alive, but even more well-deserved after his passing. And I feel like it's really sad that keeps happening, that people who write really well in their time don't tend to get the recognition they deserve until after the fact. But I think the reason that is because people often have more of a sense of possession of things that have been than they do of their own era. I think a majority of people really feel like they weren't born in the right era. I have myself been one of those people who kind of says, oh, I feel like I was born in the 20s or 40s, because, like, I feel like that's the era I should have been born in, but I'm born in the here and now. But I think that sense of nostalgia is something people really want to take ownership of, because it sounds so glamorous. It sounds so worthwhile. It sounds like something that they would be interested in. They love the fashion, they love the styles, they love the glamour of old Hollywood, that sort of thing. Early American centuries had this way of doing things where the upper echelon branded themselves as really desirable, and I think people kind of strive for that nostalgia a lot. So Gatsby, I think that's why this was kind of a revival, and of course it's going to be a revival again, now that it is officially in public domain and we are living in the 2020s. A lot of people are saying that we need to bring back the 20s, which I could do without the Great Depression that follows, though. Like, can we just not repeat some things, please? Thank you. So this top tale, F. Scott Fitzgerald is the man. I don't know what else to say, guys. Like, this is just a phenomenal book, and for what a short book it is, like, this can be, I read this in a day. And I'm a pretty fast reader. You could probably read this in, like, 4 days if you're a fairly slow reader and are consistent with your reading. So yeah, highly recommend it. Like, subscribe, tell us what you think about it, comment. If you have a favorite version that's coming out, I know a lot of publishers are doing this now where they're re-illustrating it, reissuing it because it is in public domain. If you find one you really like, comment and let us know. We love looking at pretty books. We are really excited about this revival that's probably going to happen because of this. So we would really love for you to comment and tell us what versions you like. I am, of course, particularly fond of the original book cover with the original illustration. I feel like it's a very haunting and tragic looking book cover. But There are some great ones that are coming out. So if you want to comment those, that's my challenge to you. If you can find a version that you really like, that you think is really pretty, let us know. So we will see you next time, guys. Bye.